Welcome to the AI Rollout, Episode 1. This is the show about what AI actually looks like within real organizations. We're chatting with real practitioners as they walk us through an actual AI implementation, what they tried, what flopped, and what finally works, and what they tell you to do differently next time. I'm Tom Riordan, one of the co-founders at AI enablement firm WordPower.
And I'm Dent. It's lovely to meet you all. And this show is brought to you by Marketecture. And we could not have picked a better first guest for our first episode. Emily Holliday is a partner at Human Agency, where she helps businesses get unstuck on strategy, on marketing, and increasingly on AI. That means she's had front row seats on an awful lot of AI rollouts. Emily, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Glad to be here.
No, it's a pleasure. Why don't we start with, you can tell us a bit about your role, what you do at Human on a day-to-day basis, and the kind of businesses that you help?
Yeah, of course. So I'm a partner at Human Agency. Human Agency is not your traditional agency or consultancy. We're really, I know this is kind of cheesy, but it's true. We're problem solvers driven by purpose. We're not your typical consultants that come in with here's how we address this type of problem. We deeply embed with our clients to understand what really is getting in the way of you achieving your goals and how are you actually working. I think that actually part is really important, right? We got to operate in the world the way that it is to make it the way that we want it to be. My background is in strategy and data analytics. So have always really been just sort of a creative thinker that thinks through how do we find the right numbers and systems and technology that we need to solve these problems, make it happen, and then understanding that, of course, everything's going to change along the way. So once you've got those data points and that technology, then you can adjust course accordingly. So over the last few years, it's been a really fun, really wild ride with AI as it has just dramatically changed absolutely everything. I feel like I am now 7 Emilys instead of 1 Emily, which I think my business partners are pretty glad about.
That sounds like a lot of fun on a daily basis. Can you give us a bit of an example? What kind of AI technology are you helping customers roll out?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we do all sorts of things. So this is cheesy, but I always say that our ICP is good people. And so that can look a lot of different ways. Like one of the smaller clients that I'm working with is a nonprofit that's about 60 people in San Francisco. We are helping them like bare bones start using AI. That looks like everything from hey, how do you set up your connectors in Claude? What is a project? What the heck even is Codex? Which model should I use and why? What is compute and why should I care about it? Like really the sort of foundational things that everyone needs to know to be using AI intentionally. And then that scales all the way up to some of our larger clients are upwards of 20,000 employees, tens of billions of dollars a year in revenue. And for those folks, every engagement looks different, right? Like I said, it's really about deeply understanding how does your business actually operate and then building the systems that accelerate it underneath it. I, as I mentioned, have a background in data and analytics. And I think everyone has run into the problem of like, the SharePoint drive or the Google Drive that nobody has maintained, or the messy data that comes from the CRM that is not as good as we'd all like it to be. I think a lot of folks would love to believe that AI will just like magically solve all those solutions on its own. And it will do a lot. Like Fable especially, I don't know if you guys have been having as much fun in the last 7 days before we get cut off with our usage as I have. She's really that girl. She can do a lot of things on her own. But really what you can't replace is that strategic thinking of like, what do you really want to do? What are the right inputs that need to go in that? Let's carve out all the garbage. Like do not throw all of just everything in the magic box and hope that it's going to come out on the other side perfect. Probably won't. But once you've taken that time up front to really think about what are you trying to do? What information do you need? What instruction should you tell the system? And go from there. It can accelerate really quickly. So for our enterprise clients, that looks like everything from sitting with people in every department in the business to looking at the business's macro ecosystems to evaluating their software stack and saying, hey, you could actually just replace all of these with these other things and save yourself some money. There's no shortage of problems that we're solving.
So tell us, Emily, how on your journey you got to this position of expertise and Human kind of developed this expertise. Like you're talking about advising on all these things that to you are kind of like second nature, but a lot of these are really new concepts, right? Like businesses haven't been centralizing their operations on Claude or ChatGPT for that long, right? So how do you kind of like develop the expertise, cultivate it, and be the expert that you are?
Yeah, I mean, I think the simple answer is curiosity and audacity, to be perfectly transparent, because this is kind of a really fun equalizer moment. Like, I was talking to a colleague the other day about when I first graduated and I was looking for jobs, and there were companies that were asking for 10 years of experience in managing social media marketing. Social media marketing at that point in time had only existed for like 5. So it was sort of like, what are we even talking about here? And AI is sort of the same type of thing, right? It's this like second coming of a way of doing work. And that becomes a total equalizer. Like, anybody can learn anything. And this is an even more interesting scenario because it can teach you. Like, if you can critically think and problem solve on your own, and you have that confidence in yourself, then you can kind of just ask it to teach you how to be good at using AI. And so I think at Human, we saw early that, wow, this ChatGPT thing, like in 2023, 2024, we were like, I mean, these outputs suck. Like, I can't use them for anything. But wow, isn't it amazing that it can do this? And as it gets better and as it improves, the same way that we've seen every technology for the history of forever improve at an exponential rate, it's going to change everything. So we early on were just like, if anybody can do this, we can. Sort of that audacity part of, let's just dig in and figure it out, I think is really critical to anybody just getting comfortable with this. Like, be scared and do it. Like, just start thinking and get off the ground.
And you are a bit in a position to do that. And given that the business is focused on helping other businesses in that sort of way, do you think for enterprises who are trying to build this expertise themselves, is the mindset really like the key piece, that curiosity that you mentioned? Is it kind of a mentality thing? You think they need services and help to get better? Like, should they be pulling in outside teams to get help with their AI rollout? What about resources available from the AI companies themselves? Like, what are kind of some methods that businesses can learn from you to help with their implementation?
Yeah, I mean, as with everything, especially depending on the size of your organization, all of the above is sort of the answer, right? And it kind of goes back to, like, how does your business operate? If you are a company of 20,000 people, the hardest thing with anything that you're going to do is change management. It's getting people to do it. So in that type of an organization, saying, hey, people, be curious, go figure it out, probably not going to work, right? Like, you need an actual structured system to be able to get people to do that. That is where it does make a lot of sense to have someone like a human agency or another consulting firm come in from the outside with fresh eyes. Like, fresh eyes are so important. When you are so in the day-to-day, your brain literally believes, I've done this 27,000 times. This is how I do it. And you just don't take that second to say, I could probably do this faster. Maybe Claude could do this better than me. Maybe Claude could do it faster than I could. Maybe Claude could do it and I could actually take a break and go walk my dog if I wanted to, right? Like, people need to build that muscle. And so if you have a very large organization, it's possible to have just individual people in your company coordinated doing that, but it's really hard to figure out how to create that structure by yourself unless you are already very, very good at change management. There's also, like, speed is the KPI here. Every business in every industry has to solve for 2 things: how to use AI to make your business operate better, faster, stronger than everybody else, and how to use AI to make sure that everyone knows it. Because if you are doing everything better, but your customers don't know, they think that you're still the same old Emily Holiday, then you're not going to actually reap the rewards of operating more efficiently, other than just like pressing your margins. But it's not going to give you the benefit of actually standing out and moving up in sort of the rankings of your position in your market. And so in order to do that, to move quickly, well, you got to learn, right? Like, so much of everything is just trial and error. And if you're one company, you're not going to learn from what other people have already tried and failed. And that's where having an outside partner is really helpful. Like, human agency is kind of an interesting size. We're about 40 people. So we're solving a lot of problems. We've got like 25 active engagements right now. And so across all of those, we have the most active Slack chat in the world. Like, every day it's like, hey, I just tried this. Who's done that? Who's using Gemini because we have this client that prefers Gemini, like all of these different problems. So we're big enough that we've got 40 people literally all day long sharing new things that they've learned. So we're moving faster and learning faster and giving that to our clients. We're also still small enough that we're not like, and no shade on the big guys. Like, they've got a place in the market for a reason, but those people also are huge and it's hard for them to move. And so a lot of times, if you're with like one of the big 4 consulting firms, they've got a described way of doing it, just can't move as fast. So that's where I think it's really helpful to have somebody who's been trial and erroring to come in and sort of say, hey, with objective eyes, here's where you can really benefit. Here's where you should have a partner. Here's the things that your team should just start doing on their own. Here's how we create a system to train the trainer effectively. But then for individuals, just be curious. Like spend 10 minutes every day being like, what's something that I did yesterday that maybe I could do more efficiently? And building that muscle is the most important thing, right? Like sort of basics of James Clear's Atomic Habits, right?
Yeah, we're big believers in that. Our internal Slack channel as well goes crazy. Everyone's trying Fable, everyone's trying new models, new features, etc. How do you kind of collect and curate that knowledge as it's kind of growing within your organization?
Yeah, I was just going to say, pro tip. We are building a lot of tools internally. A lot of people are building a lot of tools internally. I look forward to being able to tell you more about that very, very soon. In the meantime, the Claude connector is great. Like both Claude, both Chat and ChatGPT have the ability to integrate with your existing knowledge systems. If you are using Slack, for example, use the connector. I love like the integrated Ask Human Agency. I love that feature to be like, hey, hey, I think 6 months ago, I sent a Slack to maybe these 2 people, maybe these 5 people. And I think it was about this. And maybe there was a document attached and it can find it. And then you can similarly, if you're like inventorying in Slack, because that's your native way of working, just say, hey, give me a readout of the last 2 weeks of all of the most important things that people have learned relative to the project that I'm on. Like the number one thing that I make any new client do is I tell them to go on a date with Claude if they're using Claude or with ChatGPT or whatever their preferred LLM platform is for enterprise use, because you have to train the model on who you are. That relevant context is the most important thing that most people miss because people are busy. And candidly, we're all a little bit lazy. We're moving quickly. Like we want it to work quickly for us. But like literally pouring yourself a cup of coffee and saying, hi, Claude, I'm Emily. It's nice to meet you. I'm a partner at Human Agency. My goals are ABC. I work on these companies is the best investment of 1 hour that you could do when you are setting up your system. Because then you can say, hey, go inventory Slack for the last 2 weeks and tell me the 5 things that I need to know based on my priorities for this week. There's also just, if everyone's not aware, there are features that you can use to create a daily brief that if you've got all your connectors set up, it will inventory your Slack, your email, your calendar, whatever else you've included, your meeting notes, if you're using a meeting summarization tool, which you totally should be. And it can say, hey, Emily, here's your priorities, here's your to-do list, here's what's coming up next week. So that as I'm hopping from 17,000 different calls and 27 Slack messages and 14 phone calls every 10 seconds, it's tracking the things that I need to know for me so that then when I need to go Rolodex that, I don't have to refer to my brain that is getting a little bit less and less fresh on the recall as I age.
As you continue to outsource the storage of information to the AI, which is a perfect balance, I think. So some of these cooler features that you're talking about, like even connectors at larger enterprises, there might be IT folks saying like, don't use those or we're not ready for those, and businesses kind of moving slower. At Human, it sounds like you move really fast and you can test stuff. The same thing at WordPower, where like we are constantly eating our own dog food in that sense, right? That's the newest stuff. Slack Claude Tag, getting your Claude in your Slack only a couple weeks old at this point, but like
amazing.
It's a joy to just on day 1 or day 2 be able to experiment with that in the wild and see how useful it is for teams. And I think people at small organizations and startups feel that. I think a lot of individuals who use AI tools in either their personal life or their side project, or don't tell their boss that they're actually using it at work, these folks can get their hands on those new features like immediately and almost move at a different pace than folks in more traditional organizations. Do you find when you're doing rollouts, there is such a jagged distribution of AI knowledge and enablement that like you need to accommodate for that?
Always, every time. One of the first things that we talk about in like every new engagement is, what is your enterprise stance on how you can and should be using AI? And what is the reality as far as you actually understand it of how people are using it? Because one of the biggest, there's 2 very large risks, right? One is just that you've just connected all the things and you didn't do the step that I mentioned earlier, where you think about what is the information that should actually be accessible through the system, not only to get you the best outputs, but also to make sure that you're managing who has access to what information. Like we've run into a scenario where we're talking to a potential partner. They had uncovered that their Google Drive permissions were actually not set the way that they thought that they were. And so people weren't really aware of the information that they had access to that they shouldn't have necessarily in Google Drive. But then when you connect an LLM, then all of a sudden it's inventorying all the information that you as Emily have access to, right? Like all those permissions and protocols exist, but you do have to take the steps up front to make sure that you're not going to run into those issues. In this instance, it was not a big deal. It wasn't like, oh my God, no one should have that. It was like, okay, maybe we should just like look at things and make sure that we feel good about them before we connect things. But that is like an absolutely critical thing. You have to evaluate your current systems before you connect them. The other is it's a huge security liability if you actually don't have an enterprise AI policy for how people should be using market technology, because they're going to, right? And if you are even if you're only like 1,000-person company, is your CISO, if you have one, looking at all 1,000 people every day? No, probably not. And so if then those people are using personal accounts, there's risks that they don't have the right permissions in place, right? They haven't set the permissions to, you can't train the model, because if they have a personal account, if they're not paying for it, they can't. So it's like all of those little pieces that actually the sooner that you move, the better, because that allows you to have more control. And I understand it's like this catch-22 that every organization is trying to deal with, which is like, we're scared of risk, because of course you are, but we know that we have to do this, and not taking action also creates risk on the other side. So like bare minimum, you have to have an enterprise AI policy, period. You have to allow
Who makes
people
that? Whose job is that, Emily, to make the enterprise AI policy?
to make policy. Honestly, in different organizations, it depends. We do it a lot when we come in with our clients. A lot of times they'll have like some sort of basic policy that the IT or tech team, or if they're a smaller organization, the operations team, typically like your COO, will be the person who develops it. It also doesn't have to be crazy. It just like the key with any adoption is it has to be simple and people have to know what they're supposed to do. Right. So like send an email candidly, and then send one again, and then have all of your managers check in with people and be like, hey, we know you want to use AI. We're working on it. In the meantime, here are the 5 things you are absolutely not allowed to do, because people need to know. Right. And they want to use these tools, and they have to. Right. Like evolve or die is sort of the world that we're in eventually, which I know that sounds scary, but it's like also really exciting. Like things that used to take me 3 months and a team of 5 people, like take me a week. Like I built a whole crazy like matrix model for a project that we're scoping right now that evaluates all of this crazy market data, vets the sources, has custom modeling for opportunity scoring, a full dashboarding system, interactive chat features to understand what the opportunities are in 2 days. Like that would have taken me months.
And going back to your previous point, some organizations, someone might make something amazing like that and not necessarily know how it fits into the direction of travel for how the business is using AI. To your point about like 5 bullets, if you have no AI policy or no North Star direction to share with the org, people are wondering what is going on. If you have something very simple, 3 bullets or like a high level message, even that can be very comforting to folks. So if you're listening to this and you don't have an AI policy and you feel like you're behind, I'd suggest you aim for the simplest starting point, kind of echoing some of your points, Emily, and that would be much better than nothing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And give them some sort of vehicle for that, right? Like give them the bare minimum so people can start to express that curiosity within the parameters that work for your organization, and then move as fast as you can to get there, to be comfortable. I know it's uncomfortable. I totally get it. We talk to a lot of clients every day about discomfort with where the future of technology is going, with how this information will be used by these platforms, with, how it like potential exposure issues. I get it. There's a lot of things that you have to manage. There are ways to manage all of those things. And the reality is like, this is kind of one of my catchphrases, but some people say like, I don't like to do politics. And other people say, well, politics is going to do you. If you don't like to do AI, that's fine. But like AI is going to do you in some capacity, and whether that is like right or fair kind of doesn't matter. Like that's what's happening in this economy. And so to maintain your power as an organization, as an individual, as an employee, as a producer in this world, sooner or later, you're going to have to get on board, and like, you can't win a game that you're not playing. No.
And do you see companies, they look at how their employees are currently using it, and they, build out their policies and their processes from there? Or is it normally it's a bit more top down? It's we're going to decide how it's going to be used at this company?
Both and. Typically there's a macro strategy, right? That is like, how do we expect everyone to work together using AI? These are like your essential administrative functions, your calendar management, your daily briefs, your to-do lists, your meeting summarization, et cetera, right? Like those are enterprise-wide policies. Then within each team, you're always going to have different levels of adoption depending on the type of team and depending on their needs and the type of work that they're doing, right? And so then typically within each department, they may have their own expectations of how often they should be using it, how they're managing it to do their work. Of course, in every situation, you, the human, are still responsible for the work that you produce. No one wants to hear, well, Claude did it. It's like, well, you did it with Claude. Claude is a tool for you. So, you got to sort of set those expectations at both levels. And then really where you get the most engagement and getting people to actually build that muscle and use things is by showing them, hey, here's how this will be easier for you. Like, what's the thing that you do every week that you hate, that takes so much time? That's always the first question I ask. Because usually it's something that's just like monotonous and tedious that no one wants to do that can be automated. And if you can show people one or two of those opportunities, that like light bulb moment for them, they'll come back to you the next week and be like, okay, I have these 3 more things. How do we do this now? And the more that you work through it together and the more that they can then share with their colleagues, that's how you sort of spread that culture really quickly.
Yeah, we definitely see that a lot. That some people are nervous and they think that, AI is complicated and scary, so they don't get their hands dirty. But if you can actually show them, oh, here's how easy it is to build a skill or a prompt or a process, the light bulb really goes off and they think, oh, actually, this is quite easy. I can do this. And all of a sudden they're a AI builder and they're making new things, new processes and sharing it with their team. It's a huge unlock.
Yeah. And it's great to see people do that. There's also, I think, a degree of hesitation because, when AI first was gaining momentum, there's going to be mass layoffs and people are going to lose their jobs and all of this horrible stuff. One, that is, yes, there is a world where there are certain things that companies are going to hire fewer people or they may right-size their organizations because they're using technology more effectively. But the way that you can protect yourself from that is not by saying, I don't want to do it. Hear no evil, see no evil. It's by saying, how do I use this technology to make me 7 Emilys? How do I make myself irreplaceable by saying, here are the things that I'm doing that AI can do? And here are the things that only I can do, the human components, right? The judgment, taste, physical presence, relationships, trust. Those are things that a computer cannot take from you. So I would encourage everybody, regardless of what your position is to think about what are those components in the work that you're doing or the way that you're living your life. Join a networking group. Relationships are hugely important. I know that sounds cheesy, but it's true. And then the more that you can then master the skill or the technology to do all of those things for you, then you're just getting ahead in your own industry. There will always be a role for you. At least that's my hypothesis.
I love that. Make yourself irreplaceable. Put pressure on management. Reverse pressure on them. So Emily,
you want someone to be like, how is she doing all this?
Right.
Yeah.
People are maybe already saying that about you. So give us some folks listening to this appreciate a lot of the concepts we're laying down. They also want to hear the good, bad, and the ugly. So let's maybe let's talk war stories here for a minute. What are potentially some kind of specific examples that you've seen in the last year or so of let's maybe start with missteps, and I would love to hear things done right. And you don't have to be too specific in terms of calling out any of your partners or anything like that, but would love to hear some specific instances you've observed.
Yeah, I mean, that Google Drive one, that is a big flag for anybody. In this case, it was not a big deal, but you could imagine, right? An organization where you had not effectively considered your permissions and what people had access to. People within an organization having access to information that they shouldn't is a big risk. And all of the permissioning does exist within those systems. So there is a way to do it that can make you feel good, but you do have to take a breath and make sure that you're doing that correctly and do a quick audit before. Auditing your ecosystem, even if it is just a 1-week sprint, is the most important thing that anybody could do. In terms of there's some funny fails. The big thing is just you got to look at it, right? I think sometimes there's people that are they get so excited about the potential. That's amazing. But AI is not infallible. You have judgment. That is important. And so we had this client that someone was so excited and they built this whole beautiful presentation for one of their clients that was solving a really critical problem. It was great. It was a beautiful document. But there were 2 things that were deeply obvious as soon as someone else looked at them. One is that there's certain things in the way that AI designs things, that's really obvious that AI did it. So then like, okay, an AI did this and that. Like their spacing, the way that the squares are, if the text goes a little bit too, it like text overlaps. Like just FYI, these are some of the dead giveaways, guys. And then when you see those things, then you're like, okay, this person obviously used AI, which like good for them, but they had clearly spelled their company's name wrong in the prompt. And so their company, the company that they worked at, everywhere in this deck was wrong, which is like, it's an easy thing to miss, but it is like, okay, you got it. You have to have fresh eyes. You have to look at it. And it was spelled wrong in a way that was like created an offensive word.
When AI thinks it knows something, it really thinks it knows something. It will not shut up about it, even if it's wrong.
Yeah. Like I met someone early in my career. It was really good early in AI days. And she was like, yeah, I mean, it's Chad GPT. Like it's an intern. Like think of it like an intern. And like it has reasoning and processing power, but it hasn't learned all the things that you've learned. It doesn't have experience actually. And so if you give it an instruction, like literal interpretation and intent are not always the same thing. There's two ways to say something. And so you have to be very careful about how you're prompting it because it will proliferate all those things through. And most importantly, you got to look at it, right? Like if they had looked at it, that was really the biggest issue, is that it was very clear that they had like clicked through, but not read it. And that's where it gets you, because it's always going to look good, but you have to read it.
And how do you approach that? How do you instill these behaviors in your clients when they are adopting AI?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about AI is like it'll do it for you. Like two of my most favorite hacks are, I'm a yapper, as you can maybe tell, and I prefer to talk to AI. Like my husband makes fun of me all the time. He'll like come home and just hear me like yelling at my computer. So I will just like we have a speech to text app that we've built. I will use that and just send the whole transcript into a skill that I've created in ChatGPT and have it restructure all of my, like, here's what I'm thinking about. Here's the conversation I had. Here are the meeting notes. Here's what I'm trying to do. Here's the deliverable, blah, blah, blah. And then have it work through with me, creating a prompt. Then I'll have it after that QA itself, make sure the prompt, like, okay, go back to the beginning with fresh eyes, make sure that this prompt meets the actual need. Then you have to read that. Once you've done that, use AI to create the prompt that gives you the best potential output. Then use that to do whatever it is. And then at the end, if you're going back and forth, open a new chat. Like I use Claude and ChatGPT interchangeably to QA each other, because then it doesn't have the history of what you've already been doing. Because that's part of the challenge, is a lot of times people want to stay in the same chat where the context exists, or the same project, or using the same skill. But if you're at the final QA stage, one, it's a great practice to build a QA skill, and then just start a new chat and do that. But even if you're not doing that, like drop it into the other platform. If you used Claude, go into to OpenAI and have it like operate like whatever your role is. Have it create the prompt if you need to create the prompt, and then have it QA itself, because it can catch some of those things with fresh eyes. The problem is that if it doesn't have fresh eyes, if you're still in that chat, it's not going to catch that you erroneously misspelled your own organization's name.
Another platform is not going to make the same hallucination twice, right? So you're kind of, you're helping, you're hedging your bets. You're also inserting yourself at each of those different checkpoints. It gives you an opportunity to get your eyes on it, right? And maybe you're scanning, maybe you're not reading like tremendous depth, but you are checking each time, right? And it's a different opportunity to put the human in the loop for quality control. So it seems like a great problem.
Super. One question I've got is, you talked a bit about change management. How is the rollout of AI and the change management around that? How is that different from kind of technology that's come before?
People are people no matter where you go. And change management is about people. Like it's all those traditional kind of client service, organizational, like navigation skills. So I don't know that I feel like it's particularly different. I think the biggest thing is the speed, and it's because it is not as linear, right? So historically, if you were onboarding a new software tool, you would have a meeting with all the stakeholders and you would say, what are we going to do? And you'd go back, and then you'd build a whole plan for 2 weeks, and then you'd have a meeting to have a meeting to have a meeting. And then eventually you'd have a roadmap, and that you would very explicitly at every stage, line item out every single thing that you're going to do, right? Every connection, here's the software, here's what it's going to do, here's the data it's going to create, here's how this is going to merge into our data tables in our data lake, here's how it's then going to feed into our dashboards, right? You think about the whole system. You should still be doing that with AI, but the difference is that you can skip those steps. In like traditional software rollouts, kind of don't have the ability to skip a lot of those things because it literally will not work if you don't do them. Whereas I think that's the risk with AI sometimes, is that it will do the thing. The question is, how well will it do it? And that is where I think the change management becomes a little bit more challenging. You have to be really clear with how you ask the organization to use these tools and really making sure that it's that critical thinking that you're training. It's less like, check this button, here's how the workflow works. Like, it's less those like explicit guides and more, here's how to think about using this, which is a slightly different, muscle to then start to create.
Yeah, big time. Another notable piece that came to mind as you were explaining that is just this technology relative to like shift to the cloud or like making your ad buying programmatic. This one, the barrier to entry for individuals is so low that like individuals at an organization can start to develop expertise faster than the broad organization itself can, right? Like,
yeah,
do you find that like kind of the power users that emerge at a given org are those key allies for human in a rollout? Do you like treat those people a certain way? Do you believe in like champions programs and things like that, or how do you kind of manage that?
Yeah. Well, again, every organization is different, so every plan is different. And I know that sounds super cheesy, but it is literally true. Like, and I am the one that builds a lot of our sales decks and a lot of our initial discovery programs. And unfortunately for me, that means that every time I am like working through the strategic thinking, which is good. It keeps me fresh. And then Claude's pretty good at translating that into beautiful plans. But yes, we do believe in champion programs. At some organizations, that is the right fit. At other organizations, it's not. It depends on like what the culture is. I will also say that typically the champions are dark horses. Almost always the people. So if you're in a huge organization, right, you go to the leadership and you say, okay, go talk to your 2 levels down management and give me 20 people that fit all of these profiles. They are going to be the people that are the seeds within their teams that are responsible for like disseminating the gospel and then bringing that back to us. Because, human agency is 40 people. I've got a lot of clients. We do a lot of things, but like, no, everyone can't be calling me. That just doesn't work, right? That's not scalable. Almost always when we start those programs, we get a list of 20, 40, 50 people, depending on how big the company is. Within about 2 months, at least half of them have changed. Because it's like someone who was nominated by their leadership, and their leadership has determined that that person is either like a leader in the team that people listen to, or they think that there's someone that's really interested in technology, or there's someone who has historically been really like a big participant in their process. And it's curiosity. Like you got to get the bug, like you got to get pilled, and who's going to get pilled when and how is you almost never know. And like, was someone on vacation for 2 weeks and the whole world changed while they were gone? Like maybe. So that part is like my biggest recommendation. Try it, make the expectations very clear. But if someone raises their hand, believe them. Like if someone says like, I really like this, I'm very interested in it, give them the opportunity. Because when people are interested in what they're doing, first of all, they're happier, and that does matter. Second of all, they do better work. Like it is better for everybody, and they're going to come up with something that like we would never have thought to be like, hey, go solve this problem, because they know their job better than I'm ever going to know their job. My job is to help them think critically and step outside the box and say, how do I make this better?
Yeah, that's especially good if they're a good sharer as well, if they can go and try something and build and get excited about it, but then also share with their teammates as well. You really see the AI adoption sort of rapidly speed up when that happens.
Yeah. Encourage people to brag. That's actually another like very important thing. We do like merch giveaways and I don't know, a pizza party, but like fun pizza parties or like competitions or bug finders or hackathons, like whatever the culture of your company is, create some sort of ecosystem for people to like literally win whatever it is that they're going to win, because some people don't like to brag. Some people do. And those people that don't like to brag, they might be building all kinds of crazy shit that you just don't know about. And if you can create a platform that incentivizes them to be like, hey, look what I did, and create that culture that like, to my point on our crazy Slack thread that has 5,000 messages a day, like you need that, because then every time I have a new client or I'm solving for a new thing, I have that idea. Oh, I remember that last week, Julie built that thing that I thought was so cool. Like she built a whole integrated platform, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go back to that model and start from there. So yeah, encourage people to brag.
Yeah, and just to orient this around kind of late news events, like you don't necessarily want a token usage leaderboard. You don't necessarily want
No.
people just saying, "Hey, I'm using a lot of AI. I
Yeah.
am an AI power user," right? In fact,
Hmm.
that messaging can be kind of intimidating for peers, and then it's downright wasteful for the bottom line of the
Yeah.
business. But the use cases that you're talking about bubbling up and inspiring others, that's a critical piece.
Yeah.
And businesses need like a mechanism or something to share those. That's not just going to happen organically, right?
Yep, exactly. And actually, so that is a great thing that I'm assuming your listeners might want to know about is measurement is really important. Like I come from a performance background, so like measurement's kind of my jam, but like this is not a bias, this is a true thing. You have to have a structure for what you're expecting to get out of this program. Like MIT a couple of weeks ago released a study that proves that 95% of AI engagements produce no measurable ROI. That is not a capability problem. That is a usage and a management problem every single time, because we do not have that problem. Like in every single one of our engagements, in our proposal, there is a very explicit, here is how we are going to measure dollar for dollar impact of this program. And we measure that in different ways. It is outcomes from new workflows and new systems that we create, is increased like lift in leads, in new business, in efficiency, in actual revenue, in margins. It is actual time saved from like detailed surveys, or if you have a time tracking system, a time tracking system. And it is these use cases. It's like, okay, on average, like we found after software for one of our clients that on average, we were saving people about $3,000 a month in time based on their average salary per person. If you think about what the average salary is, that's a lot.
That's huge.
It's a lot of time. And that scales really quickly, but it's because you have to teach them, and that's after the cost of compute and software. Like you have to teach them how to use the tools in the most efficient way for their job. Like if you want to use Fable, after next week, I don't know how generous I'm going to be feeling about it, but today, if you want to use Fable, you should be doing really complex things. The only way that like ROI actually works is if you are like really deeply coding and developing a solution that you're going to use long term. If you're writing ad copy, Sonnet's amazing. Like there, kind of teaching people critically how to use those things and making them responsible for their own ROI. And we almost never measure it in tokens unless it is like, are you doing a huge project and what's the revenue potential tied to it? And how does your compute match up? It's usually we measure usage by like how often are you logging in, how much time are you spending, how many chats are you sending, because that's how engaged you are at minimum. And then we have sort of other ways, surveys and like I mentioned, like executive reports.
Yeah, that's a huge factor, and you definitely need to decide that at the start of the program, not at the end. It's too late by the end.
Yeah, you have to set the expectation of what you think will happen. You can change it along the way. Like I said, it's always going to change, but you have to have that benchmark to be able to measure against. And you have to think about how to measure it. Like a lot of this is creative measurement strategy. It's not like you could just go, oh, this system is going to give me a number. You have to think about where are you going to be able to track it and make sure that data is actually being recorded somewhere.
Yeah, perfect. Makes sense. Super. We are nearly at time, but before we go, would love to know, have you got one line advice that you would give to businesses who are just about to start their AI rollout?
Ooh, one line. Keep moving. Change everything constantly. Like the world evolves.
Yeah.
Every week, right? There's something new. So get comfortable with change. Get comfortable with change is probably my build systems that can continue to change so that you're not kind of cycling through technical debt.
Yes, that makes sense. I bet a lot of your AI rollout programs look very different by the end than they kind of started out as a design.
Constant evolution. That's what we're aiming for.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I think that is episode 1 in the books. We really enjoyed talking to you today. I really enjoyed your insights. I love that there was quite a few strategic pieces, but also quite a few tactical pieces as well about how to set up Claude and how you should be sharing information back and forth. That was super useful. Thank you.
Of course. Very glad to be here. I'm honored to be your inaugural guest. Thanks for having me.
And for those who want to find you, where can they find you and Human Agency?
Yes, they can find me at Emily Holiday on LinkedIn, Human Agency at Human Agency on LinkedIn, and also Instagram. That's where you can keep up with us. And you can find us at humanagency.com.
Thank you very much. Great. Well, thanks everyone who dialed in. We'll be back next month for another story from inside real AI rollouts. Every episode lives at marketecture.tv and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.